All right, ladies and gentlemen, got another hot topic, great discussion, and I'm going to give you my kind of 2 cents on why your genetics don't matter and why your family history does not matter when it comes to your diet and the foods that you consume. So this actually was brought up by my dear friend Shauna. Shauna made a comment and said, you have to find what works for you. That's a whole nother topic, which I absolutely disagree with. But mainly want to talk about this. She said, you have to consider your genetics and your family history. Here's where this is a problem. Number one, like for you to understand your genetics or like your DNA, you got to send something in and send to some company, and then they have your DNA and your genetics, which, mind you, they sell those things. They can use them for all sorts of, I'm going to say they can hold that against you later on, or they can do that. I think there's companies that actually have done that. So be very, very careful of sending, your family history or kind of sending your DNA out there, because it may come back to haunt you. I have no idea if that is true or not, but I think that given the fact that there is some truth to, your genetics and, what you may be more susceptible to, is that a word? Susceptible to, it's what you may be more susceptible to, or your chances may go up to certain diseases, certain things may happen because of your genetic makeup. Got it, right? Like, I'm not so blind to that to understand that that's, I'm not going to say that that's like completely false. I think that there's some I think there's some truth to that, right? And I'm not that smart, right? We know this. But I do know that there may be some truth to that. However, what does that have to do with the foods that you consume? Nothing. You can't change it. You can't change if you're more susceptible to, let's just say, diabetes, right? Like, you may have an increased chance of diabetes or obesity, right? Like, these things may be true. However, that doesn't change your approach. That should not change your approach whatsoever when it comes to foods that you consume. It just, like, why would it? But there's no reason to. And it's not like the DNA or your genetics are going to come back and say, hey, those spinach leaves are going to have a adverse effect on your health. They're not going to say that. What it may say is that you're more susceptible to diabetes, right? So, hey, you got to watch your sugar. We should be watching our sugar anyway. Like, you need to eliminate your sugar anyway. Daddy? What's up, man? I'm going to pause this. So it really, like, what is it going to tell you? What is your genetics have to do with eating more plants or eating less meat, right? We know processed meat, processed things, they're bad for us. They're bad for our health. No genetic makeup DNA is going to come back and say, hey, like, you should eat more of those, right? So that's not going to happen. Therefore, it serves no purpose. It just probably makes your mind like, oh man, like, I got an increased chance of, these diseases or these things happening to me. That's not going to make you feel better. Like, I would say default to that, right? Like, kind of put yourself in a position to say, man, like, I have these things, even though you may not, because it's going to push you. I'm going to say it should push you in the right direction, which is eat more plants. That's what it should do. So therefore, like blaming or saying, oh, you need to understand your genetics. Like, no, you do not have to consider your genetics at all whatsoever. Like, you don't need to. It's not going to, or it shouldn't change the way you think about food. And food, like, we shouldn't be eating these things at all, right? Let alone just a little bit, and say, okay, well, my genetics came back and they say, I don't have these increased chances. Does that mean it allows you, or hey, you should feel okay about drinking sugary beverages or, eating more processed meat or red meat? Like, no, it shouldn't. Like, so we need to kind of like get genetics out of our head. The same holds true for your family history. if you have a family history of diabetes, I certainly wouldn't say, hey, I'm just going to get diabetes. There was a woman I ran into when I sold life insurance, and she goes, yeah, like my mom had diabetes, and her mom had diabetes, and they had, neuropathy of the feet, and like, but did they understand that like, did they look at the diet? Did they look at the foods they're consuming? And mind you, I looked around the house, and you know what they had? Like 4 or 5 big liter bottles of Coca-Cola. So like, the family history is tradition. It's the way that we've been brought up. So you should, like, what your family history does matter in relation to what they've eaten, like not, but like the diseases that they've gotten or had. Like, that's not, like, you should absolutely look to the foods that they've been consuming, not be concerned with genetic makeup. Like, and it may play a factor, but but what does it matter? It's not going to change anything. It doesn't change anything. And like, so you have it, like, you can't modify your genes, but you can't go off of like, hey, my mom was obese, my dad was obese, their family was obese, they're all obese. Meanwhile, they're consuming like all this fat, all these processed foods, all of these bad things that we now know. Like, they may not have had the information back then, but right now we have enough information not to point to genetics or not to point to fact that, hey, it was my mom had it, my dad had it, her mom had it, her dad had it. Like, no, like, that's just putting the blame on it, and it's allowing us to say, you know what, I'm going to get it too. Like, absolutely not. That should go right out the window. In fact, that should push you more in the direction of what I'm trying to do and try to get everybody to understand, is that you need to eat more plants, and you need to absolutely consider like the foods that you're eating. It's the foods. Like, that's where we need to start. We eat way more, like, we eat every single day. So let's just say we're putting, bad things or things that are causing inflammation. They're just hitting ourselves with a hammer over and over and over and over again every single day. Like, do you understand why people are getting these diseases? Is because they're hitting themselves not only with a hammer, but they're hitting themselves with it, like they're shooting themselves with like bigger weapons than just a hammer, right? And so, like, no, we need to get away from that. Let's not put the blame, or let's not look to genetics and be like, hey, we have to consider genetics. Like, no, we don't. We absolutely don't. We don't even need to understand genetics. When these, like, way back when, they didn't have any genetic makeup. They didn't have companies to show genetic makeup. In fact, like, they didn't have any, family history to look back on and like understand why people are getting these diseases. But now we do. The information's coming out. There's overwhelming evidence. There's overwhelming information out there that is pointing all in the direction of a more plant-based diet and eliminating, like, all the meat, like eliminating processed meat, processed things. Like, we need to understand this, and the genetics have zero to do with your diet and the foods that you consume. So, regardless of whether you have the R2 genome gene that causes or may, cause you to be more obese, like, or it shouldn't change anything. It does not change your approach, or should not change your approach. It doesn't, with our clients and the people that we're trying to reach, it doesn't change, shouldn't change it. It does not change it. There's no gene that's going to come out and say, hey, you know what? You probably shouldn't eat a lot of vegetables because your genes are saying that those vegetables are carcinogenic, or those vegetables are going to cause you to get those diseases faster, quicker, right? That's just never going to happen. It's not true. It's that's a fact, right? But what is more information is going to come out and say, hey, like, this meat stuff, it's, you're hitting yourselves with a hammer the more that you eat this, right? Like, okay, so you may like consume it a little bit, but you're still hitting yourselves with a hammer. Why would you hit yourself at all with a hammer? Oh, it's because you enjoy the taste. Oh, it's because, like, you grew up on this and you're marketed to, and you think that this is, what man eat, like, or beef. It's what's for dinner. So, like, these things are hitting yourselves with a hammer. It does not matter of your genes, of your genetic makeup, of your DNA. It does not matter if your mom had it, dad had it, grandma's had it, great grandma had it. Like, it doesn't matter. It should not matter. In fact, Like, act like you do have these genes that cause all sorts of problems, and then that will help, and maybe that will help push you in that direction of eating more plants. So, regardless of genetic makeup, regardless of your family history, that does not change the fact that we should eat more plants. That does not change whatsoever. So this is why I'm saying that, like, just throw it out the window. Your genes do not matter. It does not matter. It's what we do with the information that we have. And it's not like the genetics aren't going to change our approach to nutrition, of the approach of what we're trying to do. Like, name one person that that does not want to be healthy and live a long life. There's not one person out there that says, yeah, you know what? Like, or maybe there is. I'm going to eat all processed foods because I like the taste. I am. And, my mom had, all these diseases. And I'm going to get these diseases. Well, your mom probably ate like you ate because you were brought up the way that your mom was, and your mom got it, so you probably get it. So that's where we default into, it's just in my genetics. No, it's not. It's how they ate. It's how you eat. That's my rant on that. Hope that helps somebody. Try to make this one short. See ya.